Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I have not done a video quite like this in a while. So if you're new here and you haven't seen any of my videos, a little bit about me. My name is Phoenix Rokni. I am a new fantasy author, epic high fantasy author, technically, writing a series called The Master's Core. My first book and debut, called The Fall of Magic, released in December 2024. I also want to preface that I am not in any way, shape, or form a writing teacher. I am not a subject matter expert, and I've been getting more and more questions from new authors or people that are interested in writing their debut novels themselves that have been asking me questions. And of course, while I stand by what I said, I'm not a subject matter expert. There were some things I learned along the way that are so foundational and vital for me as a writer that I understand very well. And they served me very well to get through the first book. Now, while my first book has plenty of its own criticisms, I very much believe I told a good story. And ultimately, you have to tell the story that you are writing. Okay. And it's art. Other people may not interpret it in the way that it resonates for them, and that's okay. Right? This isn't about, me telling you how to write a book that's going to be a bestseller. This is about telling you those things that have served me well. And lately, I've had some different questions about things like ISBNs, barcodes. Do you get them? How do you go about all that? And perhaps I'll do a video on that later. But today I want to talk about what I believe to be the secret rhythm of storytelling. And some would probably say it is the key to great storytelling. And it certainly has served me very well. And that is something called scenes and sequels. I look at them as the ebb and flow to writing effective chapters. And overall, they will make or break your ability to develop and maintain a solid plot that doesn't feel like it falls flat in places. But first, have you ever written a scene and felt like it fell flat? Have you ever written introspection for your characters, but it just didn't go anywhere? And or you feel like it's underserving your story? Well, this might help you. So let's break down what scenes and sequels are. A scene is the stuff that's happening that moves the story forward, and sequels are the pause in which we reflect on something that's happened in the story. And the easiest way that I can explain them are essentially where your story is moving forward. It's where things are happening, and usually it's built upon pillars that we could probably describe as like goals, disasters, and conflict. I'd probably say goals, conflict, and disasters in that order. And I'm going to explain why. The goal is simply like, think about your character trying to achieve something, acquire something, just overall have change of some sort happening. The conflict is usually the thing that stands in their way. And in a scene, you're going to basically talk about like, or showcase how your character and or characters are working to achieve whatever that goal is, and what's the thing that's getting in the way of that goal. And then the fun thing is sometimes when it comes to goals, they'll acquire it. They'll complete getting through whatever that conflict is. Sometimes they'll do that without there being a problem, i.e. a disaster. Sometimes they won't. So let's say your main character is sort of out to jack a relic, right? They're going to steal something from someplace, and that's their goal, right? But there's like a guardian, like a golem or something that's in the way, and they're there to stop them, right? That's the conflict. And usually you see that as a fight scene. It could also be a puzzle. It could be a lot of different things. But when they resolve the conflict, get a hold of the relic, maybe, for example, you might have an explosion, or you might have, like, Indiana Jones is a great example of this, right? When you watch it, like, goes and he pulls the thing off the pedestal, now all of a sudden all the traps in the place are starting to come down, and now it's all about surviving, get out of there before you're dead. That's a disaster, right? The disaster could, cause the hero to die, people to die. It could cause them to get stuck, to turn out into a disaster that way, or just a lot of bad things could happen to, the world or the location and have devastating consequences across the board. That's kind of like your disaster. Okay, so we look at those three things and we talk about that's how you write a scene. Okay, well, what the heck is a sequel? Let's say that the guy, your main character, right, goes in, gets the relic, and they make it out, but not without losing somebody, right? Now, at the end of that chapter could be when the sequel is. It could also be 2 or 3 chapters later, because maybe when they get out of there, they don't actually get a moment to breathe because another problem presents itself. Maybe in the next scene, there's another conflict, right? Another obstacle or dilemma to their goal. The goal could be get out of the cave and or ancient ruins, but now I get out and there's another problem, and my goal now is to get to safety, but now we've got all this other stuff happening that we got to try to resolve first. So what does that mean, right? While one chapter to the next could be one scene after the next, the next bit about needing to process that information because I lost a friend back in the dungeon or ruins. Maybe I don't get to process that right away, right? In some situations, you'll get to process that maybe in the next chapter. In other situations, you may not get to for 2 or 3 chapters. So it isn't as simple as scene, sequel, scene, sequel. Sometimes it's scene, sequel, scene, sequel. And the sequel could cover multiple chapters where maybe we've lost multiple people, learned new information, and we're processing all of that at the same time or at different points in the story. Now, it's going to be up to you as a writer to figure out where that feels the most appropriate and serves your story the best. That's a really great opportunity to showcase emotion, like how a character's experiencing the loss, how they're dealing with that new information, how they're having conversations about it, how they're taking all that information and putting it to work so that they can essentially make progress moving forward further into the story. Now, why does this stuff matter? I don't know about you, but I myself as a reader, I stay invested when everything that happens has meaning and purpose. And when you have emotions that lead somewhere new. But when you have a story where things are happening and it's happening with no purpose, that usually ends up being a problem. And that's the case not only in books, but in cinema. I mean, I can't tell you how many, especially these days, and that's a whole other conversation, where I watch something in cinema and I'm just like, well, what was the point of that loss? Like, what was the point of that conflict? Like, someone showed up and destroyed everybody, and now they're just sort of in the trenches. And because why? And even more so, all that happens and no one really has like an emotional reaction or like reflection about it. That's just strange to me. And it's usually strange to a lot of people for that reason. So, scenes and sequels matter because they give your story a momentum. And oftentimes, you as a writer are going to discover what the momentum is. It's going to feel like a good fit for you. There's no exact method that's going to work perfectly for everybody, because everybody's a different storyteller, everybody's a different artist, and you're going to come to figure out what that is. And that's where having development editors and people like that, proofreaders that can, get a hold of your story later to give you feedback will help you to sort of get an idea about where maybe you could do something a little better or not. And that's a whole different conversation as well. But in The Fall of Magic, I use this rhythm between the magical conflicts that were happening, the fight scenes, the slowing down to give people an opportunity to process things, whether we're talking about a loss, whether we're talking about questions about where the Dark Prince was going. And more importantly, sequels gave them the opportunities to plan what the heck we're doing next, right? How to plan for the next scene, the next conflict, the next problem to solve. That gets them closer to their inevitable finality that led to the final battle and the showdown, the end of the book, and then the resolution about what the heck all that would look like. So, next time you're thinking about your chapter, like, think to yourself, is this going to be a scene where something's happening? Is it going to be a sequel where someone's going through something they're feeling or processing information? And finding that balance of, for you as an author, what's going to make your story sing and shine the most. So that's all I got for today. If you found that this video was helpful for you, whether you're a writer or not, maybe you're not a writer, maybe you just want some insight into how the heck my brain works in how I come up with stories and put them together and what tools I'm using, and what things are working for me, then maybe that helps too. But either way, if you just found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up to help it in the algorithm. Subscribe for more, whether it's behind the bookbind series, stuff about my own fantasy world, or just talking about books and or writing in general. And if you're interested, you can join our community Discord. It's a great place for people to get together, hang out, talk about not only the world of Waro, but also just kind of writing and storytelling in general. I'd like to welcome any and all of you there. Till next time, take care of yourselves, and may the light guide you, friends. I'll see you soon.